Happy holiday season's greetings and what is up? This is Press X Start, Season 5, Episode 47. Press X Start Podcast is the audio and video podcast seeking to transform the the video game media landscape through an underserved and protected point of view. Restore justice for the underrepresented programmers, developers, and consumers. I am your host, DJ, aka Sexy Bad Choices, aka Do You Know Who Deborah Wilson is? I think some people on the cast should know. But if you, yes, right.
Well, the question is, do you know Deborah Wilson before she started showing up in video games?
Actually, no, but apparently apparently I did. So
she was on Mad TV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, she's also famous because she got caught in one of the best Press X's Start memes happening now. If you haven't checked it out, if you watched the Video Game Awards while she was playing, or while she was doing her Amanda Walker?
Amanda Waller impersonation.
Waller.
And the continual body shaming of Amanda Waller continues. That woman used to be a beautiful plus size woman, and then the CW made her skinny, and then everyone's followed suit. It's encourageable. It's terrible.
Yes, if you happen to watch the Game Awards, you might have heard a voice in the crowd saying "Yes, ma'am" to her as she was talking her thing. That person, guys, was Marcus. My man, our man, Marcus, is actually, forever. What is it? Forever immortalized. Yes, in the whatever. Anyways, that's cool. Anyways, but she also did other things. I literally cherry picked some things because I looked at her rap sheet and it is like so long. So. As you know, she is going to be in Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League as Amanda Waller. She was also in Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus.
Yeah.
She's also in Marvel's Avengers. Didn't know that as Okoye. She was in Bugsnax as Shelda Smellywag. That's a name. And Cobb Hopper, that's also a name.
You forgot she was also in Jedi Fallen Order. Is that on your list?
No, I was about to get to that.
I like to ignore her appearance in Jedi Fallen Order because
I liked her.
That's one of the worst character models I've ever seen in my entire life.
Oh yeah, she did have a buggy eyes. She did have buggy eyes.
Oh my gosh, that was a thing. But this one surprised me. She was also Kit in Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. I had no idea. Yeah, I had no idea. I was like, wait, what? So yeah, props to her as she is continuously doing that thing. But that is me, and that is Deborah Wilson. How about you guys?
I am Sean MF Ross.
Ooh, what the MF stand for?
Why don't Santa come to the ghetto?
You got a point. No, dang
it. Also,
you got a point.
I wonder if heaven got a ghetto. But that's probably just the way it is.
That's the way it is.
Oh, we don't got running water up here. What is this? Who else is here?
Jordan, aka JX Spot, aka Spartan 187.
Oh, okay. 187.
He must be from Baltimore. Surely.
NWA team. Hell yeah.
Speaking of which, I just saw Jeff Hardy with somebody, and Jesus Christ.
A wrestler?
Yeah, like, I guess he's in AEW, but somebody on another Discord server that I'm on, like, posted a picture with him, like, side by side. I'm like, God damn, that's Jeff Hardy? But I remember when they first came into the WWE, like, in the late 90s, and it's just like...
Matt and Jeff Hardy,
My man looks old, yo.
I would imagine.
Jesus Christ. But anyway, moving on.
Last up.
Hey, you there in the hoodie.
Oh, yeah. It's Avery.
Nailed it. All right. That is who we are. So for the heavy hitter, we have this comes from Kotaku's Isaiah Colbert. During a preview, actually, this is Kotaku Australia. I don't know why that's important. I just decided to say that. During a preview,
Well, it's important because Kotaku's main editorial has no real say in what branch websites do.
Oh,
it's like how IGN Israel put out that statement when about Palestine, and IGN couldn't do anything about it.
I did not know that. Okay, that's interesting. So, I'm having a thought right now outside the podcast. Nah, okay, this is gonna live here. Okay, during a preview, Forspoken developers decided or described their black protag. Protag's a new word. I haven't protag. Is it just short for protagonist?
It'll work, man. Keep going.
Yeah. It's all right. In cringe-inducing ways. So, can y'all hear that?
Yes, but keep going. It's fine.
Yeah. All right. And she's knocked out upstairs. Jesus Christ. So, essentially, what that headline is getting to is okay. I'm just gonna read a short excerpt from the article. Essentially, the Kotaku AU and a couple other journalists are having a interview with the developers, or not developers. Well, developers like writing team, just the people who make Forspoken.
Production
and
team,
they had production. That's the word. Yeah. And okay, I have to read a bunch. Okay, so essentially, during this whole thing, the production team kind of describes the them working with the actress who is doing the voice for Frey in the game, Ella Balinska. Is it Balinska or Balinska? Yeah, and basically they say that. Okay, so the production team are describing Frey's origin story, which comes off as a tired amalgamation of black stereotypes. Those stereotypes include her being very angry, falling through the cracks of society, and being on the verge of prison. That last one, being on the verge of prison. Okay.
I mean, shit, anybody is in the U.S.
Yeah. Before being teleported to Athia. The cherry on top of my newfound dread, this is coming from the writer of this article, was Stashwick describing Balinska's mannerisms during her motion capture performance as having a very hip-hoppy kind of walk. I'm just going to continue reading. I wasn't the only journalist to find Stashwick's awkward remark and the lack of Black writers showing in our preview as harrowing. So the whole Black writers thing he's talking about is the fact that in this game, the head writers are Gary Whitta, who have done a lot of Star Wars stuff, and Amy Hennig, who has done our Uncharted games. She was working at EA to make a Star Wars game that fell through, but they're big names. They're big names in the industry. They did work on the foundation of the story and then gave it off to two other writers. They're both white. I don't remember their names right now, but
Allison Reimer, and Todd Stashwick. Allison is responsible for an MTV show called Shadowhunters, and Todd Stashwick is an old, not even old. I forgot. I think it's Bethesda game that he's responsible for the narrative behind.
Gotcha. Cool. All right. So that's what the Isaiah is referring to as Black writers showing, the lack of Black writers shown in our preview, as he's saying, as harrowing. When fanbite Imran Khan asked if there was any Black developers or consultants involved with Forspoken in Square Enix's video chat, he didn't receive an answer during our preview. Later on, he received a FAQ sheet that rounded up our media questions. Sadly,
correction. Stashwick is not responsible for a Bethesda game. I'm sorry. He worked with Amy Hennig on a Star Wars game that got canceled. That's where I remember his name from.
Gotcha. All right. He didn't receive an answer during our preview. Later on, he received a FAQ sheet that rounded up our media questions. Sadly, its answer came off as canned responses that leaned heavily on the hands-on preview, where Belinska's passionate feedback throughout her motion capture progress was regarded as invaluable feedback for the team. Later on in this article, he mentions... Dang, what is that? Essentially, Square Enix came out with a response saying that they have did some consulting work with a BIPOC group.
IPOC.
There we go. Yeah. I mean, just read a quote. We work closely with a number of consultants from BIPOC backgrounds to help portray Frey's character and tell the story from her perspective. Square Enix said in the FAQ, adding that Forspoken's supporting cast was dominated by women and several women of color. So that's kind of the backstory to this whole thing. And the conversation that we had in the chat started with me saying how essentially it is, white people creating this black character.
Well,
no, that's not what started it.
That's not how it started. You were specifically talking about, because one of the things that we didn't talk about in the chat was anything in this article. You had specifically only brought up the fact that there was white writers that there were white people in the writers' room, and not the actual contents of this article.
Well, yes, this article came out after the conversation, because this article is...
Well, no, this article, the meat of this article, because there were like 5 or 10 different articles just like this one, all came out before we had that conversation.
No, well, my whole thing was coming from the video that I posted, where
Yes.
it is, I believe it is this person talking about their experience. I think it was from Kotaku. It might have been, I don't know. Anyways, my whole thoughts was coming from the video that I watched, and I posted that video, and then I had my thought of white writers creating this black woman essentially, and we kind of just...
You said, in the fantasy world, the phrase dropped in. She's looked as other, called demon, because she could travel in the evil fog or whatever to turn people into monsters. And he said, if they don't address what that means for a black woman, I'm gonna be upset.
Yes. That's not the exact first thing I said, but yes, I also said that as well. I posted many times the exact same thing that I said. But yeah, like, I think it's one of those things where if you are creating a character of color and you of not a person of color,
keep on.
depending on what kind of story you're trying to create, I think they did a good job of saying that they got BIPOC people
consultation.
Yeah, I think that's okay in terms of at least they're trying to do something to fill in those gaps of the fact that this is a person. Like, the fact that they mention in the video that I watched that like as this article was talking about how she's like on the verge of falling through the cracks of society and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, they're trying to ground this character in a way that I think could be good, but I am overall skeptical for the fact that the writer's room was white. And it's one of those things where it's just like, I don't want Frey to be essentially a caricature versus being a real character, essentially.
Yeah.
And this is where I get annoyed with you, and this is where most of my ire in our conversations happen with. DJ used the word authentic to describe real character, and I have a giant issue with that, in that authenticity, with air quotes, what does that mean? To DJ's definition, authenticity means a person sharing the background in which they're the character they are writing with. And I'm like, okay, cool, but that only makes writing the character, quote unquote, easier if you share a background with that character. But that doesn't necessarily make that resulting character good. to that point, when you start talking about authenticity, if you want authenticity, the person writing this character should be a black woman. No other black person. And in fact, to drill further down, it would have to be a black woman involved in some sort of weird fantasy event to get authenticity.
I think you take
the word authenticity too literal.
I think so, yeah.
Well,
because
I'm only taking it. I'm only taking it in the spirit in which you ascribed it in our conversation.
Yeah, but I think in this situation you aren't necessarily. I think you are taking what I said and jumping.
No, I'm not.
A step
I'm
further.
not jumping. I'm taking the logical conclusion of what you said. Jumping would have been me saying that last thing I said. But I started with, okay, the authentic person you would talk about is a black woman. But in our conversations, you didn't specifically say you wanted a black woman. You just said you wanted black people.
Black people in the room, which is fair. I can agree with that.
Yeah.
But
I think
that isn't authentic. I'm still using air quotes.
Again, I think you might be taking things a little too literally, because when I did say that I wanted black people in the writing room, I mean in general. Because this is a situation where we see this a lot. We see this happen very often, and oftentimes we just kind of ignore and shrug. But this is just the situation that it's in a news article, and it's something that we can actually talk about.
Well, before we go any further, I want to point out that the point that we eventually got through in all these conversations was we wanted more black people in the writers' rooms, period. Which is something I want as someone who is a creative themselves. It would help my life considerably if there were more opportunities for black people involved in all things. But a lot of our conversation became about the inherent wrongs and rights of writing, and where Avery Williams, don't have a profound issue with the writing team behind Forspoken, especially with the amount of data I have on this writing team and what this game is, if that makes sense. And that's me taking it with the absolute nuance of the situation that it is. Because the unnuanced take is that these people wanted to create a game with a black protagonist.
White people running the black character, goddammit.
Well,
a ghetto black character.
This Japanese creative team wanted to create a game with a black protagonist, didn't hire black people to write it, hired white people, and then they moved forward from there. Which I think is the most unnuanced take of the situation that could be presented. And what I think realistically happened is that a Japanese team wanted to make a Western-style game, reached out to two high-profile Western writers, Gary Whitta and Amy Hennig. Those two writers went to work on building this world, building its characters, and doing all that, and decided during their writing that, hey, we don't necessarily have to have a white character to tell this story. And from what they've also said, phrase ethnicity was determined when they hired Ella. So that's where they went from there. In like
Ella both voice acting and
motion caption.
So yes, they went from there. Which, if they had started this game with a black protagonist and they didn't hire black writers, I would have been on DJ's side and super annoyed and super
nonplussed. Yeah,
not nonplussed. I would be in arms about this game and its production. But I think, because another thing we need to talk about is that the only reason these articles are a thing is because of the one writer describing it in the one pull line that everyone is pulling from, the hip hoppy way. Because we've known
isn't even necessarily negative.
Well,
we've known the writing teams. I know what Sean's talking about. It's like, how do you describe a character? You wanted the character to be black without saying a character is to be black.
If you have a limited exposure to a certain thing, and the way Ella was motion capping shit
in a hip hoppy way, boy, where are you from?
How old are they?
I also have it. Like, here's the thing. This is one of my issues. Another issue I have with the argument, because DJ wasn't even talking about this until after the fact when he read this article. That was my general takeaway from from most of the Forspoken saga, this is a weird statement. I really wish there was some clarification from it. And there is some minor clarification, but not enough to whet the appetites of anyone who would already annoyed by the situation going forward. But back to my original thing, I would be annoyed if they did that. But we knew this game, we've known about this game as Project Aphia for at least 2 years. There's also the fact that this game seems to be taking parts of Agnes' Philosophy, which was an old Final Fantasy tech demo from like 5 or 6 years ago. So like, this team has been working on an iteration of this game for a long period of time. And something I've observed in video games over the years is that writing tends to be secondary to all things in terms of game design. Unless specifically the game director is like an auteur script writer, like the most secondary thing about games is going to be its writing. So from what I can extrapolate from there, this is just me trying to read into the nuance of what this is. This game has been in existence for good 4 or 5 years. We've known its writing team for at least 2 years, at least a year, at least 2. This should have been a conversation we should have been had when that initial trailer happened and she was revealed. Because we knew the details that we know now then.
Yeah. Well, we didn't know she was falling through the cracks, almost going to prison, did we?
I don't think we knew her backstory though. We just saw the trailer.
We saw the trailer, but
I don't think it was
DJ means we knew she was black back then.
Yeah, we knew she was black. We knew the voice actress, but we didn't know anything else about the overall story.
Well,
this point,
we knew what they presented to us in those trailers.
Mm-hmm.
Like kind of street hood type. I mean, hood isn't literally like.
I didn't think that though.
But for the most part, most of the stuff they talked about in her backstory is, for the most part, outside of the explicit prison talk. It's stuff that you can extrapolate from those trailers.
She came from the streets.
Yeah, I mean, sure, but we also didn't have any information on the writing team.
We did. We've been on the writing team.
We knew it was Gary Whitta and Amy Hennig.
Yeah, we've known that for a while ago.
All of these things should be applied to any race. I think we're being hyper aware, hypersensitive that she just happens to be black.
Yes, all those things could happen to any race, but I mean, we do live in a place where, you know, it happens to our demographic. Yeah, a lot more. Yeah. I think for me, like, yes, Avery, like you do have some points that I agree with in terms of like if we knew this information before, I had no idea, because if I knew this information before,
that's because they hid it in a book.
Before.
Oh.
You gotta read.
But like
DJ was being authentic.
I was. But like I think for me, like when it comes down to it, and another point that I brought up in terms of the writing room being black, or in this case, the writing room being black, but overall, I just mean more like people of color, like being able to have those opportunities to, join the conversation when they are creating characters of color, is that we literally just talked about in the quick hits how there needs to be more representation in the studios to allow that to happen.
This is incredibly complex. Not even complex. It's a moot point kind of a situation because Luminous Productions is a Japanese studio.
I mean, but they hired Western writers though.
Yes, they hired 4 Western writers out of a studio over the people who are actually making the game. Like the conversation that we're talking about is the writing team, which is a different conversation altogether, and I think in the most part is a minor thing of most games.
I think that I don't necessarily think that's I don't agree with that statement anymore. I mean, I think maybe before Last of Us, maybe.
Well, no, because here's the thing: there are 2 types of writers in games. There's a person who's writing the game script,
and the lore,
and then there's not even just lore. There's the people who are their job to actually do the writing in the game. So everything that you read in the game that requires text, those are people who do that. And in a game like this, where, as far as I can tell in its development, its writing team, or essentially the people who are writing the script, are these 2 white writers and these 2 people who did the majority of the lore work beforehand, and everything else is going to be handled by Japanese people.
Yes, because it's going back to the actual Japanese.
Yes.
Yes. Which, yeah, I mean that part is fine. Again, all I'm saying is that I want to see more people of color in the room, and this is a situation where instead of doing that, they outsourced that part of it to this consulting group. Which, hey, props to Square Enix for doing that, because at least they took steps to make sure that Freya was, I don't know, possibly a better character, because we also don't know exactly what this character can turn out like. This game can come out and it can bomb, and
What I'm
Ella
hearing
could just
though
not
is
be a
that
great character.
the race of the character was damn near one of the last things implemented into the game, because the script and all that was written already.
But I mean,
without full transparency of the writing
exactly.
process, I can't tell you when exactly the character
Mhm.
became a black woman beyond we've cast a black woman as this character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I get what DJ is saying. We need more black representation, more writers, more people behind the scenes. This also goes back to my point many culture casts ago. How many black people are applying for these positions?
I mean, that's actually a
Well,
good point too.
It's also, in terms of hiring, it's also exposure too. Like that's what many of these companies are trying to rectify is
Mhm.
how are they soliciting these positions? Are they tapping into like writing networks that are predominantly black, which do exist? Like, are they soliciting these positions to underserved and protected communities, which more often than not isn't happening. They're kind of going through the same pool, a network of writers that already have access.
Even still, what I was getting at originally at the beginning of this cast is we're still a minority in terms of numbers. If you market the position to, however many, everybody's eligible to apply. 10 white people apply and 5 black people apply, because that's, I don't know the proportion, the percentage, whatever that we are compared to the rest of the world. We're still going to be outnumbered even if they hired everybody who applied.
Right. I mean, like there still needs to be some intentionality to it, and that's the problem. Like many of these companies have been doing the same workflows over and over and over again, which led us to this point where you do have majority white rooms. I'm not trying to say them changing their hiring practices is going to immediately take effect, but it's all about the intentionality behind it.
It's not, because another thing that has to be recognized that is with games that we kind of don't really talk about is that you don't like. One of the core reasons they went for Gary Whitta and Amy Hennig for the initial story creation of this is because they were people like, this is their brand new AAA IP. They didn't want to take a chance. They wanted to find 2 writers with
pedigree,
and to a more another term to it, who had the clout to by their mentioned name, people be like, oh snap, I'm interested in this game without even hearing or seeing anything of it.
Yeah.
That was when I heard that, and I'm not someone who's the biggest Gary Whitta fan, but I do like his work. But when I heard that Gary was writing this game around at least a year ago, I was like, oh, this game has gotten even more interesting to me.
Yeah. Like I will, like I totally agree. Like when I did find out that it was Gary Whitta and Amy Hennig, it was just like, oh shit, like that's awesome to see these 2 people team up to create a game, and to see that it was a black person is like, oh wow, that's even doper. But like, it was one of those things where I had my own hangups, and I kind of put that to the side just to celebrate the fact that this game is coming out, and this game like looks good and appeals to me, and the magic system looks like Dragon's Dogma, and I was so excited for this game. But then like having to really think about it and just be like, okay, well, although this is great, but
we're making strides.
We are.
The other point I think I made was just how many black creatives are applying to be a writer on a video game. I think a lot more people are trying. They don't see it as a serious medium yet. Granted, it's a $1 billion industry.
Well,
it's still maturing.
And to Sean's point right there, in regards to writing, unless you're a proven writer elsewhere, like they're not going to give you the head writing job. So from what I can tell, because I looked at Neil Druckmann's like career to where he got from like I was a minor programmer at Naughty Dog to now I am the like president, vice president, and the creative director of all their games, and like it's a long list of video game positions till he got to that point.
So we may have somebody in the works.
Well, yeah,
possibly. But it's also one of those things where when it comes to the hiring process, a lot of that stuff happens inside the studio.
Yeah.
So oftentimes, like, yeah, there might be a writing position available, but there might be I don't know, the assistant, whatever writer, and that person's like, yeah, I'm going to apply for this position, of course. And that position doesn't even see the light of day because they already have someone to fill this position.
People always want companies to hire from within and stop bringing people from the outside. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's a complex thing, and it's going to take a while to
I think
get to where you want it to be.
My perspective is my perspective on this entire matter is I am of the mindset that nothing is ever promised. If I want to see more Black creators in the space on these jobs, I kind of don't give a shit about it on a AAA level. I'm kind of more interested in those Black creatives taking the indie space and taking those spaces and making those games and then growing from there. Because for me, this is not me even talking subjective creative stuff. This is me, Avery Williams, my own personal take. That like I don't give a shit if a Black person wrote the next Call of Duty game. I like that. Cool, it will be cool. It's a great thing to put on the level, but like that game is never going to be the focus. No one's ever going to really care about the writing of a Call of Duty game.
But like, I mean, I think
how do you incorporate blackness into a war game?
Wait. Let me jump in real quick because
let me actually finish my thought first. Let me finish my thought first.
How long's your thought?
Go ahead. Like I'm saying, the focus of a Call of Duty game is never going to be its story. Those are great bullet points, and it's going to be great moments of celebration for people who look like us. Like, hey, I'm the Black face of the creative team of this game, but the actual player base is never going to see or care about any of those elements. That being said, every time an indie game comes out and it's this is a team of 1 or 2 people working on this game. And like those are the faces that you see, and those are the faces that grow from there. Like if you pay attention to the sort of the AAA indie space, all of those creators have names. All of those creators have become something in gaming space while still remaining in the AAA space, if that makes sense. And for me, they are more inspirational to get more people into the scene than the person writing the Call of Duty game.
Okay. So I got 2 things. The first thing is that when you say that, like, you know, no one's going to be into Call of Duty for the story, like, that only happens until that's only true until it happens. Like, look at God of War. God of War was just a mindless hack and slash that, like, was about aggro male power until God of War 2018 came out and was just like, oh my god, like Kratos is a great character, and that was never really something
Absolute
that was
unit.
Difference between Call of Duty, there's a difference between Call of Duty and God of War. God of War is a single player. God of War is a single player experience where, like, if you may not give a shit about the old school God of War story. I didn't give a shit about the Kratos. I think the old school God of War story are fantastic Greek mythology stories. They just happen to have an awful protagonist. But the difference between Call of Duty is, DJ, how many Call of Duty games have we played?
Modern Warfare had a stronger story in the last decade than most of them.
But do you think, when you think about your Call of Duty experiences, are you thinking about your experiences playing with the multiplayer, or are you thinking of their, oh man, this point of the story really got me emotionally?
It's both for me. Like, I still remember the whole nuke scene from Call of Duty.
I was watching something about that. But I mean, I get what Avery's saying though.
I get what Avery's saying also. Like structurally, Call of Duty, like I usually play those just for the story, but not because the story's good. Because like it's just something. It's a Michael Bay type experience. But Avery, to GJ's point, he's saying like when Call of Duty if they ever, if it could be 5 years or 10 years from now, if they have that one time when they fucking pull a Jack Ryan and have an actual good military story, then
Season 1's good, Season 2 is not that great. But to that
same sentiment.
To that point, what I'm trying to illustrate with that point is that moment kind of happened. It was Vanguard.
Really?
Where they took I
didn't hear too many good things about Vanguard.
Because no one was talking about Vanguard because of all the stuff going around Call of Duty. That's not just the
Activision.
They said the story was good in Vanguard because I haven't heard that so far.
Well, here's the thing. From to illustrate my point is that the creative team for the story of Vanguard has been very vocal about all the work they've been putting in to the story of that game. But that conversation, no one's really talking about that conversation because of other aspects. But I don't think it's just the Activision stuff. I think it's the quality of the Vanguard experience.
I think the other side to it is that it's World War II, and currently in terms of the Call of Duty first person shooter market, whatever, is tired of World War II stuff. So going Vanguard, like starting up, people are just like down on it already. So even if it turned out to be good, there just wasn't a lot of press on top of the Activision being shitty stuff. So it's they were just not in a good place.
I think if a story is good, regardless of its where it's taking place, it's good.
I mean, yeah, I would agree. I'm just talking about the press in terms of not having a lot of people
consensus on the community
on it. Yeah, because like even if it's good, the people are going to trash it.
The difference between the press and the difference between the press and the actual player base is the press is obsessed with the Activision stuff because that is their purview and that is actually the most interesting stuff in regards to Activision. The casual community about that game does not care about that.
Yeah,
I mean, I can see that.
So I'm confused. Are you saying that
we just saw the NPD sales for that game, and it's still the best-selling game of November.
One. Yeah. No, I get that part, but I'm just confused in terms of: are you saying that the casual community is saying that story is not good, or they're saying that the story is good?
It is good.
I think from the critical response I've heard about the game, I think the story is good. From what people have said, the story is good.
Heard that. I saw some pretty in-depth reviews that are like, "What the fuck is going on?" That's the reviews I've seen with that. I mean, I'm not trying to say it's bad, but yeah, I think people like Modern Warfare more than Vanguard.
Well, that's not even there. Yeah. I still stand by that. I'm more interested in seeing the homegrown Black experiences created from there than I am seeing. That I'm more interested in this 1,000-person studio has hired this Black person to be the face of it. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Just to wrap this up, is that I in a way I agree with seeing Black people more so expand into the indie space. The only problem that I have with that is that I have not really an aversion. I just
you don't like indie games like that.
It's really hard pressed for me to like get into indie games, mainly because there's always something where it's just like, damn, I wish they had more of a budget for this, or like, man, I wish they had more time to like flesh this part out. Like,
you don't want to play no baby boo boo ass games.
No, do not bring Cam's.
But like, and the thing is, like, when I think of indie games, I think of, I don't remember the name, but it was that side scroller running game that was
Aerial Knights.
Yes, and like that was really cool. And that was something that was just like, oh man, this looks so cool. I played it for 5 minutes.
Well, when I think of like Black-grown video game, I think of that game because I think that creator's story is fantastic in that he said everyone's gonna fucking know my name, so I'm going to call the game Aerial Knights blank. This is the actual name of the game, and I think that's really cool. And I'm to a certain point, I'm kind of like you when it comes to indie games. And that's less to do with like more mechanical stuff because I'm more forgiving of that than you are. I don't like 2D. I don't like 8-bit. Like this is an NES like throwback kind of nostalgia thing. Like I want
that's
you
another
to.
thing for me too.
I want I want you to leverage the age that we in either create a leverage the age that we in and create a really good art style to overcome what might be like limitations to your graphical style. Like I get you that, but for me, it's one of those things where like one of those the at the top end scale, it's going to take a long time to get to those products that you want. Well, at the indie scale, all it requires is the people having the wherewithal to make those games, which I'm infinitely more interested in than that. Because like I said, Call of Duty has to appeal to a wide demographic. It has to sell all over the place. They're never going to truly go culturally specific, like to the point where like this is a diss on Vanguard. Like Vanguard has to, from a creative standpoint, that I observed about this. That like the protagonist of Vanguard is a black dude, but he's a black dude who's anachronistic to what the actual time period in which the story is taking place in.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Overall, just to reiterate my point, and I think we all are in agreement to this.
No, you said ingredients.
We want to see ingredients. We're all ingredients to this. We want to see more Black people in spaces where they are able to create.
Not me. So now go ahead.
Except for Sean. Sean only wants to see Jamaican people in spaces so they can create.
Bullet.
With that being said, I think we can pull this bad boy in, as some people will say.
We're sorry, Marcus.
Marcus, for you, I will do this in a hip hoppy way. Well, that has been our cast, y'all. Bang bang.
I'm leaving this. I'm leaving this call. I'm leaving this call.
This has been another episode of Press X Start Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed making this episode. Yo, in case you missed any of this, you can find all details and more at PressX2Start.com. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and make sure you hit that notification bell. Because when you do those three things, you a G.
Okay, so DJ, the explanation of how they describe Frey, that's exactly what you did when you thought of how do I make this sound black. So I need to talk to you about the authenticity of your writing right now.
We need real, authentic Black people on Press X to start.
Well, since we're about to get to the holiday, I gotta let you guys know that this is all just food coloring.
Oh, so blackface.
Yeah.
Hey man, Rachel Dolezal ran so Amy Pascal could fly with that haircut.
All right, you guys, you gals, you peoples, you be safe, you enjoy the holidays, and you have a great time with your family, your friends, your game consoles, and you make sure you stick here and you watch some more stuff that we do, because that's the thing that you should do. We're gonna be doing we're gonna have a video out in between the Christmas and New Year's break, so you check that out. But take care. Wash your hands and be safe.
I'm gonna go watch The Witcher.
Ta-da-da-da.